because of the tremendous amount of work that both SED and the Regents and the community and all the stakeholders have done together, I have asked symbolically Angelica Infante Green to, notice I say green because I can't say, after Infante, it's so hard to say green, to lead us in a moment of reflection. If she's,
where is she?
Some people will do anything.
She's reflecting.
She's, okay, well.
We do that in reflection
Well,
towards the end.
okay, so in her absence, I'm going to then ask Commissioner.
Well, I'm so pleased to be asked because I had a special thing that I wanted to mention today, because this was a day, and yesterday as well, where I think we clearly underscored the importance of teachers, and today is National Teacher Day, and so all of us, please, let's say wonderful things to a teacher who's been meaningful in our life. So go back and send them an email, call them, go on Facebook and find them, and tell them that they really changed your life, because teachers do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please be seated.
I can't get to her anymore.
They will not hear.
My mother was a teacher. I know.
Be funny.
I think we talked to her.
Okay, and later on in the program, we are going to recognize, again, symbolically, a wonderful teacher that represents a lot of the great work around the issue of the Holocaust and just teaching in general. So at this time, we have our full board consent items for your consideration. So let's start with charter application for May 2017, the summary of the April 2017 meeting of the Board of Regents. Do I have a motion to approve these consent items?
So moved. Second.
Second, okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Now we have our consent items by program area, and we will start with John DeGotti for higher ed.
Thank you, Chancellor. First item is approval of granting authority to the New York Automotive and Diesel Institute. This item is a master plan amendment for the university to offer degree in health administration, approval of Long Island Business Institute to offer associates in business administration, a master plan amendment for St. Thomas Aquinas College to offer a master's in public administration and social sciences, and the continuation of the emergency action to eliminate the ALST certificate.
Thank you. Next, we have Doug Lentovich for professional practice.
Thank you, Chancellor. We ask for approval of the following consent items. 12 appointments and 13 reappointments to the state boards for the professions, 10 requests for the conferral of the MD degree, a master plan amendment for Pace University to offer the Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering at its Pleasantville campus. 2 emergency regs continue on to consent items. Proposed amendment to 64.7 of the regulations of the Commissioner relating to execution by registered professional nurses of non-patient specific orders to screen individuals at risk for a variety of sexually transmitted diseases, and also proposed amendment to section 60.11, 60.13, and 64.5 of the Commissioner's regulations relating to the execution by licensed pharmacists of non-patient specific orders to dispense drugs to prevent HIV virus infections in persons who may have exposure to HIV.
Thank you. Next, we have Joan Ebert for our P12 Education Committee.
Thank you, Chancellor. This afternoon, we are seeking your approval for school counseling regulations. We're asking the Regents to permanently adopt the proposed regulations relating to school counseling. The second item is the criteria for the approval of pathway assessments in languages other than English. We're asking the Regents to adopt emergency action proposed regulations to provide for the approval of the pathway examinations. The third item we have for you is a petition of Dunkirk City School District not to exceed its constitutional debt limit in the amount of $8,288,500 for capital improvement. And the final one that we have for you is we're asking the Regents to give consent for Mechanicville City School District to exceed the constitutional debt limit of an amount not to exceed $33,541,000 for capital improvement projects, additions to various and other district buildings, and construction of the athletic fields.
Thank you. Regent Finn?
For Dunkirk, it's for consent to exceed,
$8,288,000.
I thought I heard not to exceed.
So,
No, I just want to make sure it goes on the record correct. Okay.
Thank you, Regent Finn. Do I have a motion to approve these items? Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you again. We have our committee reports for approval: Adult Career Continuing Education Services, Access, Cultural Education, Higher Education, P12, Professional Practice. Do I have a motion to...
Cultural actually had a motion.
Oh,
Yeah, we had to approve some new board members for the Museum Advisory Committee, so we need to.
Yeah, you're,
Okay, it's there. Thank you.
Is that,
Yeah.
it's in the report.
We're accepting it.
We don't need to do a separate.
No.
Good.
Regent, tell it.
I move it.
We are accepting it as part of the report.
I made a mistake.
So noted. Do I have a motion to accept these committee reports?
So
Regent-
moved.
Thank you, Regent Tillis. A second? Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Now we have Beth Berlin with our State Education Department April 2017 fiscal report.
Thank you, Chancellor. This is the first report of the 2017-18 fiscal year. All accounts remain in structural balance. The cultural education account is beginning the year with a negative balance of $2.7 million, and it is projected that the negative balance will remain constant this year.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval of this report?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Before we move on to the next event, I would just want to share with everyone that the Early Childhood Committee is going to be meeting. I know that the Early Childhood Work Group, I promoted it to a committee, will be meeting and is in the process of putting together a blue ribbon panel to discuss many of the issues that we have been discussing in terms of the board, having to do with many of the concerns for our early childhood and early learning, and some of the health issues and some of the many of the key issues surrounding our babies and our early schooling and our early childhood.
When is that?
So Regent Young is going to be working with Regent Reyes to set up the next meeting. Hopefully, we're looking at possibly June as a possibility. Sure.
One of the recommendations was when Regent Reyes and Renee Ryder and I and the other members of the work group were in Washington for the National School Boards event. We had an opportunity to hear from Dr. Aisha Ray. And we thought, she gave a very powerful presentation, and we thought that it would be helpful, it would inform our work if we could figure out a way to get Dr. Ray to New York. And there was a communication with Renee and the representatives from the National School Boards Association of State School Boards that Dr. Ray is available on a couple of dates in June. And so what we are attempting to do, I believe, is coincide the meeting with the dates that she is in attendance so that she could be part of the initial meeting.
In New York City?
In New York City. And so as soon as we receive some confirmation on that date, we will certainly communicate to everyone.
Great.
And I think it's important to share that both Regent Reyes and Regent Young have been coordinating the effort of trying to identify key names of people that would be part of this conversation. So I would suggest that if you have individuals that you have worked with, that you get those names to both of them. Before we go on, I'd like to take this moment, and then we have one other item before we go to our celebration to ask Regent Tillis has asked me for a moment that he would like to share some information.
I several years ago, the Regents had a couple of meetings with legislators. They came here and I don't know how many, 10, 15 or so legislators. And I found it to be a very good interaction. And they, even though their staff had known some things, they didn't have the knowledge. I would love to see a presentation such as the one we had this morning with teachers, explaining some of the things on standards or what, you know, as we come up with curriculum and assessment and whatever else. I think it'd be helpful. Last night I was with a whole group of legislators who really didn't know anything that we were doing. And I would suggest that as we go along, that we try to have some kind of meeting with them. I think they came when it was a Regents meeting as opposed to just something over there. We had something. And the speaker actually, the speaker hosted us at one point. The other thing is that the congressional delegation really knows nothing about what we're doing. And with ESSA and the ramifications of ESSA always on their plate, I think it would be helpful if we had some leadership, at least, meeting in Washington with, and Senator Gillibrand has offered to host such a meeting, so we should try to do that.
Great, thank you.
Excuse me, a point of information. I remember when I first came on the Regents, I was told that we couldn't lobby for support bills and things like that. So this seems adverse to that.
Is that a rule for the Regents?
Why don't we check into that and come back with a response on that, and we can send something out to all of you so you have a clarification on that issue.
That was an internal, well, it wasn't official.
Yeah, we'll send something out.
Okay.
We'll send something out.
Harold didn't want anybody to.
All right, we will. Okay, we will clarify the issue and move forward accordingly. Thank you, Regent Cottrell. The next piece is, I just want to take a moment as we are in celebrating this incredible event today, you know, particularly tied into the commitments that we have in terms of teachers in general, but this very specific award. But before I even go to that, I do want to thank the commissioner, the SED staff, the stakeholders, the regents for the amount of reading, the number of conversations we've had over this period of time, but more importantly, the last month. Thank you for really being so committed to participating in this work. Thank you to the stakeholders and to the teachers, the principals, superintendents, and parents that have really been a part of this conversation, and to the students, as Regent Young knows, that we were blessed last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, with the idea that our young people were speaking to teachers and were speaking to us. So I want to thank everyone for this amazing work around ESSA and around the issue of the next generation of New York State learning standards. So thank you, everybody, and just give yourselves a big hand. Okay, the next, I am pleased to move to our 2017 Regent Emeritus Louise Yavner Teaching Award, which is always a very special celebration for us. Through the generosity of the late Regent Emeritus Louise E. Yavner and his family, we today recognize the accomplishment of a teacher who has made outstanding contributions to teaching others about the tragic and inhumane lessons of the Holocaust and about human rights. And that is a lesson that today is so critical and important, the issue of human rights. This year we honor a teacher whose actions and words have inspired others to learn more about the millions of people of all faiths, nationalities, and backgrounds who suffer and perish during the Holocaust. Through his teachings, this nominee instills in his students an appreciation of human rights, a commitment to tolerance, and a lifelong interest in upholding human rights for all people in all places. The recipient for the 2017 Yavner Teacher Award is Mitchell Polay, and I hope I'm saying it correctly. Yay! A Yonkers public school teacher, where he has been teaching at Padea School for over 15 to 20 years, something like that? Okay, my God, a young teacher. Commissioner Elia, will you recognize Mr. Polay?
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, Mr. Polay, for all that you've done on behalf of the students in your district. And for 2 decades, you've been making history, particularly lessons about the Holocaust, meaningful to your students. You understand the power of history and what that can have on our future, and have helped your students grasp this critical concept as well. Your pedagogy about the Holocaust makes students aware of what those in power did to spread fear and anger that resulted in horrific, unthinkable acts against innocent people. These lessons are about more than unspeakable crimes. They also illustrate for our children the importance of standing up and speaking out against injustice and intolerance. This type of teaching says with your students, after they move on to the next grade, graduate for high school, and enter the real world, it still is with them. And thanks to time spent in your classroom, your students are becoming young adults who are informed about and engaged in the world around them. So, as the commissioner, I want to particularly offer my congratulations to you for your hard work, and thank you so much for your dedication to your students.
Yeah, you want to do that?
We have a presentation coming. I want to note we have Assembly Member Hintman with us from Queens, to your right, front row, in the bright blue shirt. Please stand up so we can identify you. Regent Johnson, you want to sit here?
Actually, I'd like to stand next to this very talented young man. Very talented young man. So, we had a chance to talk for a few minutes. And he is in my judicial district. I spent a lot of time in his school district, so I had the opportunity to talk briefly with his superintendent, who wishes you good luck and who says you're outstanding. And no one in this room can steal you out of the Yonkers School District. But my prepared comments. We honor you, Mitchell Polay, as the year 2017 recipient of the Louis E. Yavna Teaching Award for your outstanding contributions to teaching about the Holocaust and human rights. And he did say this is still a very important issue on our planet. Mitchell Polay, as a veteran teacher with more than 2 decades of experience, you've demonstrated a commitment to teaching about the Holocaust and the history which goes far beyond your community. In your efforts to make history more meaningful to your students, you've traveled extensively in Europe, Asia, and Australia. Wow. To explain and ask questions about why and how genocide and the Holocaust in particular came to be. You teach 6th grade?
I do.
And you realize that 6th grade is not too early for students to learn, understand how before World War II, political elites manipulated their own people's fear and anger and exploited their need for belonging in order to carry out unspeakable crimes against millions of innocent individuals. We applaud your pedagogical goal to study early warning signs, let's underscore that, early warning signs, and raise an understanding before people get caught up in a web of fear and anger and before it's too late to resist. You also share your knowledge with colleagues. For the past 3 years, you've been a teacher teaching a credit-bearing course that you developed for your fellow teachers. The course is called History of the Holocaust and the Lessons We Can Learn from It. Perhaps, though, there is no better endorsement of your pedagogy than a testimony from a former student that we were able to capture. She's now in the 8th grade, and I'd like to read her comments. As a result of my experience in Mr. Polay's 6th grade class, where we learned about the Holocaust, the idea of human rights has become central to my life. I'm a 13-year-old kid. Smart. Human rights means a great deal because it enables me to express my thoughts and practice my beliefs without being persecuted. Unfortunately, this is not the case for everyone. There are people that still live under persecution. All people who inhabit this great world should be entitled to the same rights, regardless of their sex, ethnicity, religion, or other diversity. We should all learn from the loss of amazing individuals like Anne Frank and never again fail to embrace others because of their differences. The idea will continue to be a part of who I am as a person. This is an example of how a teacher can influence your life at that very early age. That's a great set of comments. Mr. Polay, you've also received the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum Fellowship Award and the Susan J. Goldberg Memorial Teachers Award for your dedication to human rights education. Additionally, you were selected by the Holocaust and Jewish Resistance Teachers Program to study the Holocaust in Germany and Poland and to travel to Israel to promote genocide prevention. Therefore, it's with special pride and with great pleasure that the Board of Regents honors you, Mitchell Polay, as a 2017 recipient of the Louis E. Yavna Teaching Award for educating others about the Holocaust and other violations of human rights. And with that honoring comes a check.
Oh, thank you.
And it's
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll put this down. I do have a few words, so if you don't mind, but thank you very much. I really am so honored. There's so many great teachers in New York State, and just to be one of them to me is an honor. So Commissioner Elia, or Chancellor Rosa, Regents, and honored guests. I really want to thank you all for this honor. And I'm going to thank some people in no particular order, and if I forget someone, I'll find out when I get home, because they'll tell me. But I need to really thank everyone at the JCY, which is the Jewish Council of Yonkers. Valerie Curcio is here. They were the nominators. They were really the driving force. And everyone from Janice Kirshner, Valerie, who's here, Madeline Feinsmith, and Randy Ginsburg, who really worked tirelessly on the nomination. I want to thank the Holocaust Human Rights Education Center's leadership, Steve Goldberg, Julie Scalero, and Millie Jasper, for all their support. And I couldn't really do what I do without the backing of the leadership in the Yonkers Public Schools, which includes but not limited to Superintendent Edwin Casada, Johanna Tramontano, my principal, Ms. Jane Mormon, as well as Samantha Rosado Ciriello and the Policy Board of the Richard Gazzola Teacher Center. Last, of course, not least, I really need to thank my colleagues in the Yonkers Public Schools, and specifically, it's Padea School 15. I know it's a strange name. It's a magnet. And my family, my mother who's here, who I'm very proud that she came. Aw, everyone say aw. But, and my whole family who's been just incredibly supportive. They're working now, so we let them stay home. But I'm going to start with the Nelson Mandela quote. And he said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. The role of education is to equip students with the knowledge and confidence to make a difference in the transformation of society. In addition to providing students with content knowledge, education should help instill values, attitudes, and behaviors which align with expectations in society. And this is where human rights education really does come in. Another quote this is a man named Zahid Rahad al-Hussein, who is the Jordanian High Commissioner on Human Rights at the United Nations, which really, I think, sums this up. He said, even in kindergarten, children should learn and experience the fundamental human rights values of respect, equality, and justice. From the earliest age, human rights education should be infused throughout the program of every school, in curricula and textbooks, policies, the training of teaching personnel, pedagogical methods, and overall learning environment. Children can be guided by human rights education to make informed choices in life, to approach situations with critical and independent thought, and to empathize with other points of view. So I really couldn't have said that better myself. Thank you again. I'm thrilled to be recognized for something that I'm passionate about. Please encourage human rights education. Please help us inspire our students to be upstanders, and please challenge us to treat everyone with respect, dignity, and kindness. One last real quick quote from Dr. Martin Luther King: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So again, I really can't thank you enough. I'm really honored. I appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Do you want to do a photo?
Yeah, absolutely. Where would you like us?
Right there's fine.
Can I get on that side?
Yeah, Valerie, get away.
No, I'll take a picture.
Okay, where are we
Right there.
Okay.
Next to Mom.
going? Do we fit?
Yes. We all do sideways, so.
Thank you. Thank you again. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Before we conclude, I just want to say the one word I heard from Mr. Paulet was transformational. So thank you for all you do, and thank you to your students and your community. And at this time, we stand adjourned.
Okay. Terrific meeting. You guys got through a ton of stuff.